Alright, so we often take a look at a lot of gaming stuff as usual, and some of them took unusual approach, and the Gigabyte Aero is one of them. Sure, Gigabyte has been around like forever in the business, but the Aero take a step ahead on a thin and light gaming notebook. So let's take a look at the Gigabyte Aero. The Gigabyte Aero is a thin and light gaming notebook. As you can tell from the naming scheme, the Aero. The notebook came in different sizes as the name goes, like the Aero 14, 15 and even 18. What we got here is a nice orange cover Aero 14. The first impression that we got when holding the Aero is how nice it felt in your hands. And even though it's 14-inch gaming laptop, it feels a bit bigger than the Razer Blade 14, contrast for its Aero name. The orange color that we got has a black carbon fiber texture section near the hinge of the display. Other than orange, you can get the Aero with full green with green fiber texture or the average black one. For around the world tour, we're gonna start with an I/O, which I say is very good. On the left we have the Kensington lock, full-sized HDMI 2.0 for 4K 60Hz output, one USB 3.0 port, audio combo jack, and a full-sized SD card reader that's sadly half depth, but understandable due to the size of the laptop. And on the right we have two more USB 3.0 ports, a mini display port, and USB 3.1 Type-C connector, 10GB port capable of 5V 3A for your mobile device charging. And by the way, Gigabyte sent us the middle of the ground Aero 14 with Skylake Core i7-6700HQ, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM configured in dual channel that thankfully not soldered into the board, looking at your Razer Blade 14, for maximum total of 32 gigs of RAM if you so choose to upgrade. On the graphics department, there's GTX970M with 2 gigs of GDDR5 VRAM. And you can choose the GTX970M with 3 gigs of VRAM if you want better graphics. Continue on the storage, the 2.5-inch hard disk drive is absent here, but there is two M.2 slots with NVMe support for your blazing fast SSD. What we got here is a single Samsung SM951 256 gigs NVMe SSD, which is not the fastest SSD around, but it's still much faster than SATA option. Moving on to the inside of the laptop is the 14-inch screen. The base model is an 1080p Full HD IPS display with wide viewing angles. And we got here is a 1440p QHD IPS display option that is perfect for the 14-inch display. And actually I prefer it to the QHD or 4K displays on this size because the battery life will be much better. The display has a perfect color reproduction with a great contrast, but sadly there's no touchscreen option on the Aero 14. On the top of the screen there's 720p webcam with a microphone and ambient light sensor. Moving on to the keyboard. The keyboard has a wide backlit keyboard with well-sized keys and have a good travel distance for such thin device. And also for gamers, there's 5 macro keys that you can configure to whatever you wish on the Gigabyte macro software. On the top of the macro keyboard, there's G button to switch your macro profiles. And the touchpad itself is a regular size touchpad, not too big or not too small, with matte finish that tracks really accurate and has a great palm rejection. Now we move into the performance. For your productivity and multitasking, the Core i7-6700HQ will serve you well with least 4 cores and 8 threads. As for gaming, the GTX 965M will not give you good performance on 1440p without sacrificing details, but for 1080p is pretty good, and the specification is actually on par with the desktop GTX 960, so it will give you a good experience. As for example, I play Overwatch quite a bit lately, and on this Aero 14 it will do 60 FPS on 1080p with high settings. And if you want more graphics horsepower, then GTX 970M option is there for you to choose. Moving on to the thermals. At first we really dubbed the thermal performance for the Aero since it's very thin and small, but the 2 heatsink fans coupled with 2 heat pipes that spans to both CPU and the GPU does its job very well. On the Overwatch gaming session, the GPU only heats up to approximate 70 degrees Celsius and didn't make my hands sweaty while playing. Turns out the fan spins up to 6000 RPM, and despite that speed, it surprisingly doesn't make annoying high-pitched sound the Blade 14 makes. And on the day-to-day use, where you're just browsing or typing your work, the fan noise is not even noticeable. And the best for the last, the battery life. I was in shock when I first opened the back cover, which is a single door solution by the way, because the battery takes off half in the inside of the laptop. The battery included in the Aero is a massive 94 watt-hour battery. Gigabyte tells us it can hold up to 10 hours of the battery life. In our case, it's almost dead. The browsing and typing workload that I typically do daily takes a long time to drain the battery. And even for gaming it's good. The battery boosts do its job very well to keep the FPS to 30. And on battery I played an hour game of Overwatch and just drained like 30% of the battery. And to charge the massive battery, it's elegant and small sized 150 watt AC adapter that spots a USB port for charging your phone. Very nice. And for the conclusion, the Aero 14 is not a perfect gaming laptop. The absence of touchscreen and also the screen bezel size, for example, is very big, so it could be improved, maybe on the next model. But the build quality is great, so does the performance. And for the mobile productivity standpoint, the battery life is excellent and definitely could last long haul flight. The size and weight get a thumbs up, and certainly is the right direction for Gigabyte if they really want to take the thin and light high performance gaming laptop market that has been dominated with the Ryzen Blade 14 and also the MSI GS40. That's all I've got with the Gigabyte Aero 14. Like the video if you liked it. If it sucked, you know what to do. Write down in the comment section below if you have something to say to us, and subscribe if you haven't already. And see you in the next video. Goodbye.